All right, so we're diving into The Great Gatsby today.
Ooh, fun.
You guys sent in your copies, so we're ready to really get into this world.
Yeah.
All the glitz and the glamour.
Champagne.
But,
The flapper dresses.
before we get to all that,
Yeah.
chapter 1, there's this thing that always kind of gets me thinking.
What's that?
It's that advice Nick Carraway's dad gives him about reserving judgment.
Oh, yeah.
It's like Fitzgerald is giving us a heads up, right?
Totally. It's like he's saying, hey, don't just take things at face value, you know?
Right, like things aren't always what they seem.
Exactly. And who better to guide us through this world of illusions than Nick Carraway?
I mean, yeah, he's like the perfect outsider looking in.
Totally. He's fresh out of the Midwest.
Brand new to all this
Yeah.
fast-paced Long Island money stuff.
Yeah.
He's going to see through the BS.
Exactly. He's not blinded by the glitz and glamour.
No, not yet at least. And speaking of facades,
Oh, who are we talking about?
Tom and Daisy Buchanan,
Ah, the golden couple.
they have it all right.
It seems like it.
Beauty, wealth, social standing.
The American dream.
But there's this one comment Daisy makes
Yeah.
about hoping her daughter will be a beautiful little fool.
Ooh, that line always gives me chills.
Me too. It's so disturbing.
It's so revealing, though, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely.
yeah.
Here she is living this charmed life,
Right.
and yet she's basically saying ignorance is bliss.
Yeah, it's better not to see the truth.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
like she's already figured out that the American dream
At least their version of it.
is maybe not all it's cracked up to be.
Right. A gilded cage.
Yeah. But then, okay,
But-
at the very end of chapter 1,
Yeah.
we get this glimpse of Gatsby
Oh, yes.
reaching out towards a green light across the bay.
So mysterious.
Right.
Yeah.
What do you make of that image?
Oh, that green light is all about longing.
It is.
It's like Gatsby reaching for something he can't quite grasp.
Like what?
Think of it like this. Remember when you were a kid and there was that one toy
Oh, yeah.
you just had to have?
The one you begged your parents for.
Exactly. That toy is the green light.
Okay. I see it.
It's not really about the toy itself.
It's about what it represents.
Exactly. For Gatsby, it's Daisy. It's the past.
This lost world he's trying to get back.
Exactly. He's reaching for something that's just out of reach.
So we've got these lavish parties.
Right.
All these whispered secrets.
Yeah.
And then Fitzgerald takes us to a totally different place in chapter 2.
Where do we go?
The Valley of Ashes.
Oh, wow. Yeah, what a shift in mood.
It's like going from a Technicolor movie to a black and white photograph.
It's stark. It's gritty. It's Fitzgerald's way of reminding us
What's that?
that the Roaring Twenties weren't all fun and games.
Right. There's a darker side.
Exactly. The Valley of Ashes represents the people and places left behind.
The ones who got forgotten in the pursuit of the American dream.
Exactly. And those eyes of Dr. T.J. Eckelberg looking down on it all.
Yeah, those creepy eyes.
They're like a silent judgment.
It's like they're always watching.
Always judge.
It's like that part of town you drive through and try not to look at too closely.
But Fitzgerald makes you look.
He forces us to confront it.
And then we meet Myrtle Wilson.
Tom Buchanan's mistress.
Yeah, she's a fascinating character.
Stuck in this valley of ashes.
But desperate for a taste of the good life.
Like she's using Tom to climb the social ladder.
She's trying to, but it's not going to end well.
You think?
Oh, I think it's pretty clear.
All right, so we've got the Valley of Ashes.
Yeah.
We've got this love triangle brewing.
Right.
And then we can't forget about those wild parties Gatsby throws in chapter 3.
Oh, yeah. Those parties are legendary.
Orchestras, mountains of food champagne flowing like water.
It's like a scene out of a movie.
But even with all the spectacle.
There's this underlying sense of emptiness.
Yeah, like everyone's just going through the motions.
Exactly. They're all putting on a show.
And then in the middle of all this chaos,
We finally meet the man himself,
Jay Gatsby.
the mysterious Mr. Gatsby.
I was struck by how young he seems. And kind of awkward.
Especially when he keeps calling Nick old sport.
It felt so forced.
Like he was trying too hard.
Do you think that's our first clue? That Gatsby isn't who he seems?
I think so. It's like he's wearing a mask.
Trying to project this image of sophistication.
It doesn't quite fit.
Like it's all an act.
Maybe.
And then in chapter 4,
What happened?
Gatsby drops a bombshell.
He tells Nick his backstory.
Yeah, he spills his guts.
About his past as James Gatz.
His time with Dan Cody.
The war medals, the international adventures.
It's almost too much to believe.
And remember what they say. If something seems too good to be true.
It probably is.
Exactly. There are gaps in Gatsby's story.
Things that don't quite add up.
It makes you wonder if he's being completely honest.
See, this is why Nick's dad's advice is so important.
Right. Reserve judgment.
Because things aren't always what they seem.
And just when you think it can't get any crazier.
Gatsby asks Nick for a favor.
Oh, what's that?
He wants Nick to reunite him with Daisy Buchanan.
Wow. Talk about audacity.
Right, like he wants to use Nick as a pawn.
In his elaborate scheme to win back his lost love.
It's romantic and creepy at the same time.
Totally. It shows how determined Gatsby is.
But also how delusional he might be.
He thinks he can just recreate the past.
Like he can erase 5 years of history?
Just by orchestrating this perfect reunion.
So before we jump into Chapter 5,
Okay.
and that highly anticipated reunion between Gatsby and Daisy,
I can't wait.
I want to hear your first impressions of Gatsby.
Okay.
What stands out to you about him so far?
Well, I think the biggest thing is that he's a man obsessed
Obsessed.
with Daisy. He's built his entire life around winning her back.
You really think so?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, that green light, those lavish parties.
Yeah.
It's all for show. It's all to impress her.
Like he's trying to buy her love.
Or at least buy his way back into her life.
Interesting. We'll have to see how that plays out.
It's going to be good.
I have a feeling it won't be easy.
Definitely not. But that's what makes this story so compelling, right?
Absolutely. All right, so that's it for part 1 of our deep dive into The Great Gatsby.
Stay tuned for part 2, where we'll see what happens when Gatsby finally comes face to face with Daisy again.
And trust me, you won't want to miss it.
It's gonna be juicy. Chapter 5, that reunion scene. It's so awkward.
I know, right? Gatsby's like a nervous wreck.
Knocking over clocks, practically tripping over his own feet.
You can just feel the tension.
Fitzgerald is so good at capturing those little moments.
It shows you just how impossible Gatsby's quest really is.
You can't just erase 5 years of history.
And then there's that scene with the shirts.
Oh yeah, the shirt.
Gatsby showing Daisy his massive collection.
Mountains of shirts.
It's such a powerful scene.
On the one hand, it's another display of his wealth.
Right, like he's trying to prove something.
But it comes across as kind of desperate.
Do you think Daisy's impressed?
I think she's more overwhelmed than anything.
Yeah, there's awe, but there's also sadness.
Like she's realizing that all this wealth can't buy happiness.
That's the hollowness of the American dream right there.
It's all surface, no substance.
And then in Chapter 6, we finally get a glimpse behind the curtain.
We see the man behind the myth.
James Gatz.
The real Jay Gatsby.
It's a stark contrast to the image he's created.
He's shed his past like a snake sheds its skin.
But can you ever truly escape who you are?
That's the question, isn't it?
Is Jay Gatsby just a mask? Or has he become the man he pretended to be?
I don't know. It's hard to say.
And then there's Dan Cody,
Gatsby's mentor.
this larger-than-life figure who embodies everything Gatsby wants to be.
But Cody is a cautionary tale, too.
He represents the allure and the danger of wealth.
He had it all and it destroyed him.
It's like Gatsby's following in his footsteps.
Destined for the same kind of downfall.
It's almost like a Greek tragedy.
You know, where the hero's fate is sealed from the start?
And then we get to Chapter 7,
The climax of the story.
the hottest day of the summer.
The tension is palpable.
You can feel it building.
Everything comes to a head at that hotel room in New York City.
The heat, the arguments, the accusations.
It's like a pressure cooker about to explode.
And then boom, the car crash.
Myrtle Wilson is dead.
And Gatsby's world starts to crumble.
It's a turning point in the story.
He can't control everything anymore.
The consequences of his actions are catching up with him.
And you see the real Tom Buchanan in that moment.
Cold calculating.
More concerned with protecting himself than with anything else.
It's chilling.
It shows the moral bankruptcy of the upper class.
They live by a different set of rules.
And Gatsby, despite all his wealth, is still an outsider.
He never truly belonged in their world.
Chapter 8 is just heartbreaking.
We see the depth of Gatsby's love for Daisy.
It's all-consuming.
Years of yearning and longing.
We learn about their first meeting, their time apart. Gatsby's relentless pursuit.
It's a powerful backstory.
But it also highlights how doomed his quest is.
He's trying to recapture something that's gone forever.
And then that scene by the pool.
When Gatsby is shot,
It's such a tragic end.
this man who built an empire for love dies alone, betrayed by the very people he tried to impress.
It's a stark reminder of how fleeting dreams can be.
And how impossible it is to truly recreate the past.
Gatsby is a martyr for the American drum.
He chased it with everything he had, and it destroyed him.
And now we come to Chapter 9.
The dust settles, the parties are over,
Nick is disillusioned.
ready to leave West Egg and go back to the Midwest,
He's seen too much.
the dark side of the American dream.
The corruption, the moral decay, the casual cruelty,
It's left him jaded.
and that final image of the boats beating on.
Boats against the current?
borne back ceaselessly into the past.
It's such a powerful metaphor.
For the human condition.
We're all trying to move forward, but the past keeps pulling us back.
It's a reminder that the past is a powerful force.
But it's also a cautionary tale.
We need to learn from our experiences and find a way to move on.
Without being consumed by what might have been.
It's a lot to think about, you know?
Yeah, it really is.
The big takeaway is
Yeah.
the American dream.
Mm.
It's not always what it's cracked up to be. Gatsby had the success, the wealth, the status,
Yeah.
but it didn't make him happy.
It didn't bring him Daisy.
And in the end, it just brought him tragedy.
I think Fitzgerald is trying to tell us
Yeah.
that chasing material wealth can be a hollow victory.
Especially if you lose sight of,
What really matters.
like, real human connection.
Exactly.
Having a purpose.
Right.
Gatsby had it all on the outside.
But he was empty inside.
It's funny because this book was written almost 100 years ago,
Yeah.
but it still feels so relevant today.
Oh, totally.
We're still obsessed with wealth and status.
Social media is all about
Yeah,
curated lives, perfect images,
it's easy to get caught up in that,
trying to keep up with the Joneses.
thinking that happiness comes from having more stuff.
More followers, more likes.
But The Great Gatsby reminds us
Yeah.
that those things are fleeting.
They don't bring lasting happiness.
So do you think,
Mm.
knowing how it all ends,
Yeah.
Gatsby would have done anything differently?
That's a tough one.
I mean, if he could go back knowing his fate,
Yeah.
would he make the same choices?
It's hard to say.
What do you think?
I think he was so blinded by his love for Daisy,
Yeah.
by his vision of the past.
He couldn't see any other way?
He was driven by a force he couldn't control.
Maybe that's the real tragedy of Gatsby, that he was trapped by his own dreams.
Yeah, he believed so strongly in a second chance.
In rewriting the past,
that he couldn't accept reality.
that some things are just out of reach.
It's a reminder for all of us
What was that?
to hold on to our dreams, but also
Yeah.
be present, appreciate what we have,
And sometimes letting go.
is the best thing we can do.
Wow, that's a powerful thought.
It is.
Well, this has been quite a journey.
It has.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into The Great Gatsby.
It's been a pleasure.
We hope you've gained a new perspective
Yeah.
on this timeless classic.
And maybe you'll even revisit the book yourself.
Yeah, see it with fresh eyes.
Discover new layers of meaning.
Until next time, happy reading.
See you then.